evening, everybody, or morning or afternoon, whenever you do listen to this back. But good evening, everybody watching live across Twitter, YouTube, and Kik. Yes. We amassed a massive 23 views on Kik this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. So let's see if we can't make it 25 views on this one. Thankfully, we got a little bit more than that on YouTube and Twitter. So hello to everybody. Welcome along to the Monday Night Rabble here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast. And I cannot believe, as it was coming towards the end of the season, I was sitting, messaging everybody going, right, folks, what we're going to talk about. There's not a lot out there. I'm a little bit worried about the end of the season. Rangers never really disappoint, do they? Apologies, Steph. Please not, Martin. Unfortunately, I'm here. So I do apologise. And joining me today, I've got Wilf and Stuart. Wilf, how are you? And can I say, cracking t-shirt?
Thanks very much. I feel a bit underdressed because you and for a change, I thought I won't rock any Rangers merchandise. I'll put on a Lambretta t-shirt, and you rock up in a Rangers top, and Stuart rocks up in a Rangers quarter zip. So I feel a bit underdressed, but it is a cracking t-shirt, to be fair. But yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Looking forward to getting into this. I haven't been on a pod with Stuart for a wee while, so looking forward to it even more because I'm on with one of the top men.
There's a reason why you and Stuart don't go on a pod together, because we try to keep the time to a reasonable level. And Stuart, I have to...
You say that about everybody that I'm on with, though, so it doesn't matter.
I think it might just be you, Stuart, to be honest.
Yes.
So just, folks, just switch off now. Oh, no, don't do that. Stuart, I've got rather than how you doing, I've got a more pertinent question.
All right.
I'm wearing the anniversary top, centenary top thing. You're wearing a lovely jacket.
Training. It's a training one.
Training top, yeah. Yep. They're very white. Yes, Stuart?
Yeah. We got the memo.
How do you keep them clean?
Hold that thought.
This is great for the audio listeners. There we go.
Looks like a doctor.
I know he does, doesn't he? He looks like a doctor. How do you keep them clean, Stuart?
Well, I'm generally pretty good at no spilling my dinner down it, and I tend not to roll about in the mud with it. So just wash it as per normal, Martin.
No, there's a mark on this top. Can you see it?
But see, I wouldn't. Is that your dinner?
I don't know what it was. I've washed this top about 80 times.
I wouldn't be wearing that eating my dinner though.
I think that's your first mistake, though. I just want to blame Castor, so they send me out a free one.
You think they'll do that?
Yeah, I've made it. I've washed this about 40 times, and that stain is not coming out. So,
to be fair, Mark, I've got a white training top, different one to Stuart's, and mine's just got a little black mark on my arm. I just can't get rid of it. Don't know where it came from. It wasn't my dinner, so I don't eat with my elbows. But,
as someone that collects strips, I don't want to hear that you're not looking after them well enough. Martin, that's not good enough.
Poor.
Yeah,
that's really poor. See, he doesn't even give an answer to that because he's stumped. He's absolutely stumped.
What did you say? It's just poor.
Yeah, it's so poor. So poor. Right, listen, Rangers Rabble out of context. There's going to be people talking about a stain in my tap that I can't get off. We all know where people are going to go with that. But Rangers on tour. Martin segues into an ad for Rangers Rabble adult bibs. Well, it's funny you should say that. No, I'm only joking. And folks, get your comments in, get your questions in, and we will do our absolute best to answer as many as we possibly can. Now, I think I've spoke to Wilf. I'm not sure, Stuart. I've definitely not spoke to you about the takeover and all that good stuff. I suppose, even though, and I said this on the afternoon Rabble and the morning Rabble, it feels as if it was announced about a year ago. So this may seem like a bit of a stupid question, but your reaction to the takeover, Stuart?
Exciting, isn't it? You know, it was even though we knew it was happening, it was just nice to finally get it over the line and it absolutely confirmed. I put something on Twitter on Friday to say, you know, that it was exciting for us as supporters, and also just trying to make the point, because you know what's going to come back with that as Rangers fans, we are allowed to be excited about this, but it doesn't mean that we're absolutely deluded to the fact that it's all going to be plain sailing and there won't be bumps in the road. And nobody's under the impression, that just because we've got new owners, that there isn't a huge amount of work to be done. One, as the club as a whole, the squad, who the manager, all these things, and some of that has got to be done in a really short period of time. But I think we do have some evidence with Leeds in terms of how potentially they might go about that. I think that's exciting. I enjoyed their statement as well, because I felt it was honest. It didn't try to overpromise. I thought, and also making it clear. I think I said in the show I did with Ian last week, talking about that yes, they're going to come in and absolutely first game of the season, we should be aiming for the title next year. We absolutely should be doing, but they should also be looking at what is the plan for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And I think that they tried to get that across in the statement that they released. So I think it's been a positive start. I think we're now starting to see things moving, that they're putting structures in place. Again, Thewell's comment, I know, probably talk about that, but again, just giving you slight glimpses that there is work that has been happening, even though, they haven't been out there and really visible at the training centres. Clearly been stuff going on, and I'm sure that'll be the same right at the top level as well. Interesting, I thought that there was quite a lot of change in the boardroom as well. Names that we hadn't heard about. So there is fresh ideas that's going to be coming into the club, and I think that was badly needed. I'm not one of these guys who is going to just lambast the old board. They made mistakes, but I don't believe that they made those mistakes deliberately. They did stump up cash at times, but as Dave King put it, there was definitely investor fatigue setting in there. So this has absolutely came at the right time. Said previously, Martin, when we've been on shows, imagine sitting here right now if we didn't have this and it was the same board.
Mental.
What sort of conversations we would be having right now about what our pre-season, what our recruitment, who the manager is going to be, and then what next season would bring. I think that would be a right tough shift for us on a podcast, and I think it would be tough on the Rangers fans to be optimistic. So it's came at the right time. I think it is exciting. I think Rangers fans have every right to be excited about it, but I think there is also the same ones in us also know that it won't just be an overnight fix, and we will have to kind of stick with it. And I'm keen to get your guys' thoughts in terms of the trust level. That not only do the board need to kind of display to us, but I think that we need to give them a bit of trust and time to see this through. So I'm optimistic, Martin, and it'll be interesting to see what the next couple of days bring.
I'll bring you in on the trust thing, Wolf, right? Because I think it's a quite an interesting topic to go into. Because I think in all the excitement and the buzz, maybe it's been something that's not really been spoke about. And I don't really think it can be too in-depth analysed until such times as we hear an interview from Andrew Kavanagh or Parat Maraf, and we hear what they've got to say. And not look them in the eye, but we can look at them and judge, right? So we'll be able to do that, Wolf, right? But just on Stuart's point, just from a personal level, see, before we heard about the takeover, as most people know, I run this full time, right? I was genuinely sitting some nights doing my editing, looking at what I could talk about the next day, etc., etc. And before we knew anything about this, I was genuinely thinking to myself, what is the Rangers online community going to look like in 2 or 3 years' time if this carries on? Because everybody was fed up. Views were down across the board on YouTube, on audio downloads. Fans weren't the majority of people that were tuning into Rangers content were not Rangers supporters. Right, that's how low Wilf, we absolutely were as a fan base. So before we have the conversation about trusting in the new board, before we even get there, what Andrew Kavanagh, Parat Maraf, the 49ers, what they've done is they've kind of gave Rangers supporters a new lease on football, if that's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, they've given us something to cling on to. I mean, there was a comment we went through earlier. I didn't catch who posted it, but I said exactly the same when I spoke to you about this on Sunday. That I'm trying not to get too excited because talk is cheap and we've heard it all before. But I think these guys are the real deal. You know, you just need to look at what they've done with Leeds United. You know, and okay, that's not Andrew Kavanagh. He's nothing to do with Leeds. That's the 49ers enterprises. You know, but the fact that Kavanagh said he was something along the lines of he was bought into the idea of getting involved with Rangers because he was at Ibrox and he, you know, loved the atmosphere, loved the passion, loved all that. I mean, the guy seems to get it. And these are successful businessmen. They're not going to block their copybook. They know that this is big. I mean, you've got the 49ers own Twitter account or X account or whatever you want to call it. You know, making a big thing that they've taken over a leading role in Rangers. So they don't want to block their copybook by making an absolute mess of this. So you're right; they have to trust us to stick behind them, and we will because they know that's going to happen. But we have to trust them to get it right, and they're starting to get it right because they're putting guys in positions that can actually do the jobs. I mean, we had Niels Coppin. I mean, I feel a bit sorry for the guy. He's leaving the club, but he was brought in to do what he specialised in, which was head of recruitment, and he didn't do too bad a job in that, I don't think. But then he got other stuff thrown at him. You know, that he really hasn't got the skill set for. But he's not going to turn it down. He said, yeah, okay, I'll do the best I can. You got other guys like Craig Robertson. He was, a year ago, Craig Robertson was he wasn't even the data analyst for the youth team. He was a guy that did stats for the youth team. And then within 6 months, he was almost academy director. You know, they just kept, there's a guy there, we've got a job to fill, we'll just fill it. You know, because the board didn't have the contacts in the sporting industry to bring in guys to do the jobs that they were qualified to do. But we've got Kevin Thelwell, who's going from sporting director at Everton to sporting director at Rangers. So he's got the skill set and the experience to do the job he's coming in for. And Dan Purdy, who was the recruitment guy at Everton, is coming in to look after all aspects of recruitment and talent identification all across the board at Rangers. The job he was doing before he came to us. So he's got experience in it. So if you're talking about trusting them, so far we've trusted them to find us a new sporting director and a new technical director. And they found us guys who have previously been in those positions. So far, so good.
Yeah, so far so good, Stuart, until such times as they inevitably will, whether it's in a week, whether it's in a year, whether it's in 2 years, they make a mistake, which every human being in the world does, and then they'll rightly get crucified for it. But the trust question is an interesting one to me. It might not be people watching, so I apologise if it's not. But the trust question to me is interesting because if you want to go back, we can go back. I don't particularly want to go back into that sort of era, but we've had shoddy people run the club before. And then, and again, I've had my say on the X board now, and maybe I was a little bit too vociferous in my, that sounds awfully posh, doesn't it? Maybe I was a little bit too vociferous in my anger towards certain individuals on said board, but that board came in, stabilised the club to a point, got us to the point of winning a league title, but couldn't really advance on that. Investor fatigue's been spoke about by Simon Jordan and everybody else. But I think to me, with the 49ers and Parat Maraf and Andrew Kavanagh or whatever, it already feels as if we've moved into a different league in terms of professionalism.
Well, yeah, look, the proof is going to be in the results that we see, and that's not just about the most important ones, obviously the results in the pitch, but they will obviously be doing stuff from the commercial side, etc. So I think there's an expectation that they will take us to the next level on that. They will do things, they will get things wrong, but they will also do things that probably might not go down well. So, who's to say what will happen with season ticket prices next year? We just had a very brief chat before we went live. I agree with what Will said before we went live in terms of, I think the naming rights for our stadium will absolutely come in to question now, particularly if they're maybe looking at a redevelopment of that, if you've got 15,000 on a waiting list. So how that will go down, there'll be some in the camp who'll say, well, do you know what, it's money, and yes, it will still always be Ibrox to me, so you can stick whatever name on it, but there'll be others who will be very passionate that that's kind of sacred and you can't touch it. So they will do things, they will make mistakes just naturally, but I think there will also be things in terms of some of the decisions that they make that might come across quite cutthroat. And I thought it was really interesting that, David Edgar posted something about a conversation that he'd had with a Leeds United fan, and that last summer Leeds selling their 3 best players for a huge amount of money, 120 million or something like that, bringing 6 in, but maybe only spending 25 to 30 million. And it caused huge uproar. But actually, Leeds were a better team for that. So I think they will make decisions that they believe are right. So going back to my earlier point about plan for year 1, 2, 3, 4, where do they see us at that point and how we get there? I think they will make decisions to do that. And as fans, I think initially we will have to trust them in that, and they will have to give some back, and and hopefully that will be by some initial investments, bulking up or transfer kitty, etc. But I think there will need to be a bit of give and take on both sides here. And I think it's natural for fans because, we have had some shady crooks at board level, but what we've also seen recently is Rangers men making mistakes. And so there probably is a group of supporters who will look at these guys and say, no, I'm going to need something from you over a period of time to convince me that you're not going to make the same mistakes, because actually that's what I've been used to for the last 3 or 4 years. So it will be an interesting time. Like I say, it won't all be plain sailing, but they come with a stature and what looks like an experience that I think earns them some trust as they begin this journey.
Martin, on the mistakes point, before you come back in, sorry, Stuart's right in everything that he says there. But on the mistakes point, for us as a support to trust them, see, as long as they explain why they made the decision they made and own any mistakes that they make, they'll get as much time as they want from the Rangers support, as long as they at the back end are winning those trophies. But they have to, if they make a mistake, in the past we've just tried to not mention it again. Hopefully it goes away, people forget about it. If they do make mistakes, as long as they own the mistakes, and I think they probably will, they seem to be that type of people, then that will buy them an awful lot more time.
See, just on that very point, right, what you're talking about, speaking to fans and stuff, right? I don't know how it worked at Leeds, right? But we know that we've got 1 or 2 people who are supporters who run Rangers shows, Rangers podcasts, Rangers blogs, who are quite well known and have good audiences, right? I'm pretty sure that the only people that Parat Maraf spoke to, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I have looked and I didn't find any, was official club channels. Is there any worry, Wilf, that with these new owners coming in, with Kevin Fairwell coming in, that perhaps, and I don't mean lose access, I don't mean it in that way. What I mean is, for us supporters who didn't and don't have that access or support with a football club where we can ask questions and get answers and then report it back to supporters, any worry with the Americans coming in that they just stick with the in-house media, maybe newspapers, and we the fans lose? Because whether you watch or listen to Heart and Hand or Four Lads or the Rangers Review, whatever it is there a worry that maybe we lose that connection with the football club that way?
There's a worry that they could do that, but I'll be honest, I've got no idea the makeup of a Leeds United press conference. I don't know if there is fan media, for want of a better expression, in a Leeds United press conferences, or if it's just national media, local media, actual journalists, guys. I don't know if they've got their version of Heart and Hand or their version of the Rabble or their version of whoever in their press conferences. If they do, and they've chose to just speak to the club, then there's a very good chance that will still happen. But as things stand at the moment, to the best of my knowledge, Rangers matchday press conferences and on the gantry and match days, they've still got Heart and Hand. They've still got 4 lads. Obviously, they've got the Rangers review. They've got these guys already in situ. I don't think they're going to come in and change that. Definitely not at the start. So I'm not saying these guys are going to get one-to-one interviews with the guys at the top. I don't think that for a minute. But I don't think they'll just sort of totally disregard it. But as I say, I don't know the makeup of the Leeds press conference, so I've got no idea if they're already there or not.
I think, Martin, if you're talking about trust, why break? Why put yourself in the back foot by doing something like that kind of straight away? So I think there'll be.
Yeah, but it's if they know or not, Stuart. It's as if, I know that somebody will probably tell them.
Yeah.
But media it's American. I've just nearly smashed my screen. It's Americans that are coming in, Stuart. Media for Americans is completely different to what it is for the Brits.
But they've bought a British football club, so there'll be certain things that they can change, but they won't be able to change how we view our football club and what we expect of it. So I'd be amazed if they do that. And there are people in this club, and look, Patrick Stewart, he didn't have to do those CEO forums. He could have came in and said, actually, no, that was the previous guy's idea. I don't like it. But he's actually kept that going. So they would have been well aware that that he was holding that forum. What was that, last month, and that will continue into the summer. So I think there are certain decisions that they will make, like I say, that will probably maybe upset a few. It could be the price of a burger, price of a pint at Edmonton House, certain things. I just don't think you need to cause yourself that grief by maybe restricting keeping things in-house. What I do think is important, and I wonder if they're maybe just going to let whoever the new manager is have their moment, maybe this week, etc. But I think it is important that we hear from these guys fairly soon. Give us a bit more about, rather than just that statement, give us a wee bit more detail about this direction that you want to take us. What is the plans for year 1, year 2, 3, whatever? Give us a wee bit more, so they can't just disappear now. We will need to hear from them. Andrew Kavanagh is the chairman of Rangers Football Club, and I think we have Patrick Stewart. I don't hope we don't fall into the trap that we have in recent years where we have a silent chairman. I'm not saying I want to hear from him every week, but I do think you need to hear from him on a more regular basis than we have, because he's got an important role in that. So there's a few things that I think they need to do over the coming weeks.
I mean, look, I ask that question purely out of selfishness because we're applying for press accreditation for next season. So that was just a pure selfish question that I was asking. But going back to the naming rights, Stuart, I can't remember if it was you or Wilf that mentioned it. And I don't know if this is controversial or not, right? And we've got a couple of questions, and we've got a super chat, and I'm going to get to them, I promise. I don't know if I'm just at that age, right, where I'm like one step above and I would be old school, one step below and I would be whatever the hell they call young people these days, right? I don't know what they call them. But I watch clubs around the world, Stuart, and big, massive clubs that change their stadium name, and it's all financial, right?
Yeah.
If they were, and we've spoken about this before, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, right? But if they were to change the name of Ibrox, and I don't even want to think of a name to call it, right? But whatever they change it to bring in extra income, just me personally, Stuart, I wouldn't care, because I would call it Ibrox. I would know it as Ibrox. And if I knew that it was bringing more money into the football club, I don't care.
It'll be a divisive subject. I think it'll probably split fans, right, 50-50. I kind of agree with you. I would be on board. It would always be Ibrox to me. And I think you have to look at it in terms of these guys can probably go out and maybe they can attract larger and bigger sponsors and might be able to get some money in that way. But Scottish football is small fry compared to like our really large neighbours and the other 4 big leagues that sit with the Premiership around the world. So they will have to look at other avenues in terms of how they generate money to make us or put us in a position where we can start competing, and that'll be the key to it. If we did the naming rights and all of a sudden there was more money in the kitty to attract better players, etc., and we were winning trophies and we were going really deep in European competitions, that'll ease the pain of a change of name of a stadium. Do I see that happening straight away? No, I think that might be down the line. I think they will want to get their feet on the table and build a relationship before they even go down that route. But would it surprise me that that's something it's on the horizon? No. And I think it's only right as a football club that we probably look at that, because we, like say, the league that we're in, we are restricted in terms of the money that we can generate. So we've got to think outside the box.
Yeah, and not just that, Wolf, as well. Yes, we've got billionaire owners now, which is all well and good and fantastic, and everybody's happy, and the spring is full and all that good stuff, right? But Celtic as a football club are still, as it currently sits, much better run than us, right? They've got a squad full of players who are more valuable than our players. They've got Champions League money in the bank. From the bank balance of how it looks, without just pumping money into it, Celtic are miles ahead of us, Will, right? So there has to be avenues that we can go down to start clawing some of that back. I know you're going to say, win the league, get into the Champions League, qualify for the Champions League this year. That helps it. But we've also got to look at every avenue we can, because although FFP in our league isn't really that much of an issue, it is in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, financially, that other lot of light years ahead of us, as you say. I mean, and it's been that way because of where we've been. They've basically hoovered up all the Champions League money in Scotland for the last dozen years, apart from one season, because we've not been in a position to challenge them for it. But the FFP, although for Scotland it's not too difficult, as you say, to get around that. In Europe, you have to watch what you're doing, and because of the way the rules are now, the reason there's going to be a share issue to get the 20 million in is because they can't just say there's £20 million. So same way as they can say, well, they can't just say, well, there's 100 million to sponsor Ibrox, but we'll just keep calling it Ibrox. But what's encouraging for me is the way that some of the stadiums are sponsored in Scotland just now, and I don't know if it's elsewhere, but you've got the whatever it is, the Scott Foam Stadium at Dens Park. It's whoever it is at the stadium. You've got the Scottish Gas Murrayfield Stadium. So it's whoever the company is at the stadium. So if it was Rangers Rabble at Ibrox Stadium, for example, that would be...
Possibly next season.
I don't see why anybody would really have an issue with that, because Ibrox, we'll always still... They could call it everything. We'll still call it Ibrox. I mean, who's to say they won't come out from left field? I mean, somebody put in the comments earlier, get hold of Elon Musk and call it Ibrox with a big X, right? They're more likely to go to Apple and call it I-Brox, and it's still Ibrox. You know what I mean? And it's sponsored by Apple. That's only a wee daft guy like me thinking about it. So it's probably going to have to happen. And give it a few years, it'll happen across the city as well, because they're not always going to have that Champions League money. There's no guarantee they'll get it this season because they've got a qualifier to do. So that'll start eating into their bank balance. And when we start winning leagues again, that'll start eating into their bank balance. So I would imagine we're not too far away from every major club, almost everywhere, having their stadium with naming rights on it.
Yeah. Let's talk about managers, shall we? I don't know who wants to go first. But I'm hearing a resurgence in the name Russell Martin. Now, as far as I was led to believe, he was going to be the next Leicester manager, right? But Stuart, I'll take it to you first. What is the reservation? Because look, I get that he gets sacked at Southampton in the Premier League. He was trying to play football that probably Southampton shouldn't have been trying to play, etc., etc. Is that the biggest reservation for us for Russell Martin? What is the issue with him?
Probably a couple of factors, isn't there? On that, I think for some it'll be Russell Martin, the Rangers player, which is probably a bit harsh because we were a basket case of a club at that point when Russell Martin played for us. So I don't necessarily think that should be held against him. I do think his style of football is something that is cropped up. I think for some there's a nervousness that he plays a very heavy possession style of football, and whether or not we've seen that in recent times under your Beals, your Gios, your Clemonts, where yes, we've had lots of the ball, but then what have we done with it? Have we had the ability to break teams down? Have we been too slow and ponderous, allowing them to get behind the ball and making it really difficult for us? That might be a bit harsh, by the way, because I think, Russell Martin did very well, and I think was one of the, if not the most difficult league in the world, the Championship down south with Southampton, and did play very good football, scored lots of goals, etc. So that might be a bit harsh on him. But I think that's probably a key kind of factor in that, added to also his history with us as a football club. I don't think what happened with Southampton helps, because it felt as if there was a naivety to that, that here's plan A, the old Warburton, there's no plan B, when it was quite clearly not working. So I think there's a number of factors that are probably playing into it. And for some, it will also be, well, it's maybe, is it as fresh and as exciting as, say, an Ancelotti, for example? Maybe just the name gives you that. But he's certainly still in the mix, isn't he? He's not going away. So I don't know if it was yourself, Martin, that said something last week about no smoke without fire when it comes to this. So I think he's definitely under consideration. It does appear that it's between the two of them. But going by what Kevin Thelwell said in his wee statement today, it's looking we're probably no Wednesday, Thursday by the looks of it. You would think?
I think Thursday at the very latest, just going by the way Thelwell was talking. It wouldn't surprise me if it's tomorrow. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's tomorrow at 1 minute past 1. If I'm being honest, just as we finish up. Waterboot 72's got a good point here, right? He's been a channel member for 4 months now. Thank you very much. There's not one candidate the majority of fans agree on. Well, that does not surprise me.
No, the only thing that I think all the fans agree on is whoever it is has to be announced very, very soon. I mean, that's the only thing that's, the fans seem to agree. Rangers fans never agree on anything. I mean, there's the old adage, if you've got 5 guys stranded on a desert island, you've got 6 supporters club the following day. You probably have, because that's just what our support's like. And that's just because of the size of our support. I had the discussion last night with my heart supporting good lady about, because somebody asked the question on the pod yesterday about what happens to Club 1872 once we go private again. And I was talking to her about that after the pod, because obviously Hearts have got the foundation of Hearts, and that's the only fan money generating thing they've got, and that's what technically owns Hearts. We'll never have just one, because there's too many. The support's too big, so we'll never agree on the manager. It doesn't matter who comes in as manager. There'll be people saying, I don't want Russell Martin, as Stuart says, because he was rubbish as a player, or he's this, his football's rubbish, it's this, it's that. Well, people say Ancelotti, he's not got experience as a manager or a coach on his own right. He's this, he's that. There's whoever else is in the mix, don't want him because X, Y, and Z. The only thing that is consistent is whoever it is, as I say, the thing we all agree on is it has to be announced in the next few days. And go with what Kevin Thelwell said today, a head coach will be announced in the next few days. So as you say, probably Wednesday or Thursday, right? The only other thing we have to agree on is we have to support whoever it is, whether it's Ancelotti, whether it's Martin, whether it's Gerrard, whoever it happens to be, whoever they choose. Going back to your earlier point tonight, we have to trust in the new owners of the club who are going to be appointing this guy. We have to, supposing it is Russell Martin, and and a lot of supporters like that don't really want him. We have to trust them that they've made the right decision, and they have to live and die with that decision.
I mean, yeah, well, whoever they appoint, if you don't want the guy, tough, because that's who they've appointed. So there's no point in for the next month and a half before the season starts screaming and shouting about how much you don't want him.
Do you guys take some confidence from the fact that the process does appear to be quite thorough? Whereas in the past, there is a huge amount of pressure out there on these guys to announce something, because people are looking at players are due back in 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks today. We've got Champions League qualifiers, etc. So there is a huge amount of pressure there, but it does feel as if they're going through quite a rigorous process to identify it. Given what we've seen in the past, where very quickly, Gio's going, right, it's Michael Beale. It felt like that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the Michael Beale thing for me, never mind how Michael Beale was as a manager at Rangers or a head coach, whatever you want to call him. Having him in the stands in the director's box when Gio's still the manager, looking back on that, I'm pretty sure at the time I probably didn't think Michael Beale was coming to Rangers, so I was like, "Oh, what's the big deal? He's just in the director's box." But then to sack Gio and bring in Beale, that's poor. That was very poor. Listen, it happens everywhere. They have if a board think they're going to sack a manager, they're out touting to see who else is about. What they don't do is then bring him and sit him in the director's box while the other manager's still in situ and still in at the bench, which is honestly, looking back now to that, you're going, so they've been out of touch for quite some time. They export that, and that to me proves it. But just on the manager's talk, channel member Gaz super chat, thank you very, very much. Every bit of support right now is greatly, greatly appreciated. I'm refusing to answer this question on the reasoning that I've got everything else wrong. So I'm refusing to answer. But Wolf, I will start with you. So question for Gaz, super chat for Gaz. Who do you prefer as manager? Wilf and Stuart.
Michael Beale.
Wilf.
From the candidates that are being touted, and given that we're not bringing in a manager, we're bringing in a head coach, because that's
Yes.
the last two statements the club have put out that said head coach, not manager. So it's going to be a head coach. For me, it's got to be Davide Ancelotti.
Does the fact that they've used the phrase or term head coach, Stuart, are we reading too much into that, or does that kind of tell you that it's going to be Look, for me, it says it's going to be Ancelotti, the fact that they just used head coach, but I may be reading too much into it.
We talked about this, did the fact they kept
About 17 times, sure.
Oh yeah, we have. But that term head coach, did that rule somebody like a Gerrard out? Because do you see Gerrard as a head coach, or do you see Gerrard as a manager? And I think we talked about the fact that probably maybe a bit unfair on Gerrard that he could adapt and become that. But I think it is quite telling. I think that talks to the structure that they're trying to put in place in the club. Now that you've got your sporting director, etc., in there. So
does it rule out Russell Martin, Stuart?
Or
is Russell Martin a head coach?
I think he could be a head coach because he's
previous experience with the club.
I'm not sure it's about the experience with the club. It's what I see in terms of a head coach is that they are on the training pitch. Their job is to improve the players that we have and get the results, and not really having to be dealing with anything else. That will be their sole focus. I think from what we've heard, that seems to fit. And Ancelotti, who, if he was classed as the Rangers manager, I still think you would see him very much on the training pitch with the whistle in his mouth, leading the sessions and stuff like that. So time will tell in terms of that kind of whether the head coach is we have been looking into that too much. I'm with Wilf. I've been kind of all in Ancelotti since he's been mentioned. That's not because I'm sitting here saying I think he will. I absolutely know he'll be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I think it fits with the kind of freshness and the kind of new approach. New owners. Here's your new sporting director. Now here's your new energetic young manager. I just think it kind of works, and I do believe that although he hasn't been a manager or the main man in his own right, I think you can take some comfort from the clubs that he's been at, where he is. I think I put it in our chat. The idea of people keep saying, well, he needs to know how to go to Easter Road at Sunday midday to get a result. Well, yeah, but he also needed to know how to go away to a smaller team in the Spanish league and make sure Real Madrid picked up 3 points. And by and
he
large,
was the manager, Stuart, so it doesn't count.
If you listen to how instrumental he seems to be in terms of that coaching staff, I think he did a lot of the work. Yes, his dad clearly has that kind of gravitas and stuff like that. But I could go back to, you're not walking into Real Madrid and, having your Mbappes, your Modric, whoever, Vinicius Jr. and all that, and running training sessions unless you've got something about you. You would be found out very, very quickly. Again, every appointment's going to come with a risk, Martin. I think we're either looking at a manager who's had a setback in his career, or we need to go for someone that you're giving them their first opportunity. And I've said before, if Ancelotti goes elsewhere and does really well, he'll never be the Rangers head coach after that, because he'll get gobbled up by some of the bigger teams. So it's whatever side you're on it. And let's say I prefer Ancelotti. I think it would be an exciting move.
Just before you come in on that, Wilf, I'll say we've had a £10 super chat. I don't know, it's a channel member, YouTube user, which usually means there's something wrong with their channel. It's Australian, so I'm going to guess Stephen Robertson, but I could be wrong. But thank you very much for the super chat, whoever you are, because YouTube, for some reason, is hiding your channel name. And I'm guessing probably won't let you comment. But thank you. Thank you very, very much for that. Well, if you want to pick up on any of that, then feel free to fire away, because I've got a question about Mo Diomande coming up.
No, I think Stuart's right. I mean, we can all speculate as much as we like about who the manager is going to be, or the head coach is going to be, because I am all in. It's definitely going to be a head coach, because they've said that. I mean, bringing in Ancelotti, yes, it's the first time he'll be in charge, right? But immediately above him is going to be two guys that can do the job they're in there to do. You've got Dan Purdy, who's looking after all the recruitment and the talent identification. You've got Kevin Thelwell in as the sporting director. So he'll be, I would imagine, in daily contact with them, because they'll all be based at Auchenhowie, I would imagine. So he'll have a support network around them that like for example, when Bill came in, they just said, there you go, there's the keys to the castle, you do it yourself. They had nobody saying, hold on, that's wrong, right? He's got people, whoever comes in, and let's just say it is Davide Ancelotti, he's going to have people he can, at the club, he can say, look, what do you think about this? Can you see this? You see, like Stuart said, you can't go to places like Real Madrid and kid folk on. You can't kid on guys who are professional footballers. Look, I'm a coach. If he's only there because he's his father's son, he'd very, very quickly be found out. So he's got loads of experience as a coach at major clubs in major leagues, and he has to get a chance to start somewhere. Let's be honest, right? Walter Smith came into Rangers as being an assistant manager to Jim McLean forever. Then he came in as Graham Souness's assistant. Souness left, and okay, yes, he knew the club. He'd been at the club for a few years, right? And he used Scottish football because he'd been in Scottish football forever because he used to play in it. But his first management job was as manager of Glasgow Rangers. And look how successful Walter Smith was over both tenures at the club. So every manager has to start somewhere. And I'm not saying Davide Ancelotti is going to be, if he comes in, is going to be anywhere near as successful as Walter Smith. It would be absolutely wonderful if he was. But whoever comes in and says, we've got to give him a chance, I think it will be Ancelotti, because that's in the last 2 days they put out a statement saying they will announce the new head coach. And all he's going to be is a head coach. There's never been any expression that he would be a manager, because that's a completely different skill set for me.
And Paul's asking, Martin, out of the candidates mentioned, who attracts the better caliber of player? I don't really know if I mean, obviously you'd be thinking Ancelotti, wouldn't you? Because of where he's worked at Real Madrid, the players he's worked with. There was even talk that possibly Modric was going to come with him to Rangers, which, by the way, would be phenomenal.
But look,
and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but it's not going to happen.
I don't get why Guillaume Balaguer did that. What I would say, though, is Balaguer isn't writing that statement or that newspaper piece because that's just what he thinks. That's coming from the Ancelotti camp, that, he's very interested in the Rangers job. He wants it and stuff like that. You're getting nothing from Rangers. Here you have a coach currently who is working for Real Madrid, and he's using one of the most famous Spanish journalists to try and get his message. That's coming from his camp. So, there would be some things. I think Ancelotti would have the greater contact list, given the leagues that he's worked in and the clubs that he's worked for, than a Russell Martin. But,
but it's down to Thelwell, and it's down to Purdy and all that involved in the club. I think they'll be doing the majority of the scouting. I don't think the reason that they're probably using the term head coaches, I think Rangers will be, whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, I think we're moving into the territory now of the way they work down south, of the way they work in Spain. I think that's the way they're trying to position our football club. It's not a case of, right, well, the manager's the one that's going out to speak to the players that are joining the football club. No, it's the sporting director, it's the director of football, it's the chief scout. It's all that sort of stuff. The manager will have limited input, but enough.
Yeah, the head coach needs to be involved in it, but it's not going to be your Michael Beale, here's the checkbook, Michael, off you go.
Yes.
And spend it as you see fit. That's no longer...
No, it's going to be, what position are you looking for? What type of player are you looking for? Right, we'll give you 2 or 3 or 4 options of people that we can afford, and we'll all, like committee, we'll all discuss it, we'll all go over it, and we'll all take our pick and see.
Because what you want, if Ancelotti was to come in and Ancelotti is successful, Ancelotti will move on. But what you're then wanting is that you've already identified, well, who's the next head coach that just slots into that position, and you don't lose any momentum. You're not suddenly going, we're suddenly going to have to change formation, and we've hired a manager or a head coach that can't work with any of these players. And what we're then seeing is we go into another summer where you're then going through, well, we need to lose 11 players and we need to bring 11 players in. That should never be the circumstances that we see ourselves in if this structure works the way it should.
And Martin, that's another thing that since the takeover's been muted and it's been happening, and they've done correctly. They've brought in a director of football, and then they're going to bring in a manager. When we brought in Niels Koppen, we brought in a manager first, who was the manager come in, and the director of football was, well, you'll work with this manager. Whereas we've got Kevin Thelwell, who's made no secret of the fact that there's been stuff going on in the background since it was announced that he was coming to Rangers. He was still at Everton, but he was obviously still in negotiations. Because I don't doubt for a second that Issam Sharai, who by the way nobody ever talks about, is still at the club. He was appointed by the 49ers group because he's still at the club and he's seen off the last 2 managers. So there must be something in that before he's still here. But the very fact that Thelwell, has been brought in now, he will be in talks with the new manager. So as Stuart says, if let's just say it is Ancelotti and he hits the ground running and he wins us the Champions League next year, and then he gets headhunted and he ends up at Bayern Munich, right?
It's a statue put up outside the Ibrox or the Red Bull Arena or whatever it's called. Yeah,
the sporting director's still there, and we bring in another head coach to carry on his legacy, as opposed to we've brought in a manager, and then we said, right, okay, who do you want as your sporting director? Then the manager leaves, the sporting director's a pal, he leaves as well. I mean, the structure's supposed to be the sporting director employs the manager, not the other way around.
I don't know. It's funny, but that we can even make ludicrous jokes about winning the Champions League when Liverpool have just signed a player for 109 million. It's mental, by the way. It's absolutely mental. We have discovered who YouTube user is. It's Callum. Used to live in co-winning, now lives in the great state of is Western Australia? Is that a state? Is that a state? Yes.
Yeah.
Never have thought we'd be on such a high from the low of last season. Exactly. And all the way from Texas Bern, channel member as well. Super chat, afternoon, folks. I bet you've got better weather than us, Texas. I absolutely guarantee it. But thank you so much for the support, my friend. Thank you to everybody for the support. And Stuart Henderson as well, channel legend, gifting a Rangers Rabble membership that went to Hoggy75. So congratulations, Hoggy75, on the gifted membership. It's great having two screens. You can see everything. Right, Stuart, just quickly on this, because we did discuss it on the afternoon Rabble. Mo Diamandi, linked with a move to Everton. Any coincidence that Thelwell comes into Rangers and all of a sudden Dio's linked with a move to Everton?
That was quite convenient, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, you would assume then that he was on a list that Thelwell was absolutely aware of, if it's true. It's an interesting one. Not a player that I would be rushing out the door. I like Diamandi. I think he's got something about him. I think you just need to get him influencing big games on a more consistent basis. I think there is a player there. I watch him quite regularly at Ibrox, and he's constantly frustrated at times. His teammates not giving him the ball. I think he's one of the few in our team who's willing to accept a ball when he's got an opposition player close to him. Mm-hmm. I think he's and actually we need more of that, because actually that should be then creating space, etc. But look, every single player at Rangers has got a price tag. Rangers are in no rush. I think he's got 3 years left of his deal, so we'd be in a very decent position in terms of how we negotiate that. But you do have to look at it from, if Everton were to come in with a bid that we felt met a level and we then felt that we could reinvest, then he could move on. I think Raskin is going to move this summer. I think that's sadly probably...
Wash your mouth out with soap.
I know, but look, if he's not going to sign a contract, then it's the right thing to do. He needs to go. This is his highest, it'll be his highest value. So if we can't get an extension out of him, then he's got to go. If you then lose Diamandi, it is a kind of big loss that you're losing two of your better players. But again, these are some of the decisions that Kevin Thelwell will need to make. He's in that hot seat now, and so he's got some big decisions to come along. But Rangers now need to start acting like a big club and start demanding top dollar for our players, because then it sends the message as you go along, and we haven't been good enough at that. So Diamandi, not one that he would be rushing out the door, but I mean, I don't know what we bought him for 4.5. So what we're looking 12 to 15.
Well, I mean, I think 12 to 15. I think you bite the hand off Everton. But just before you come in, look, see, barring if we can get Raskin tied down to a new contract, right? See, barring that, and I maybe Igaman at a push, although I think there probably is a conversation that we should have at another date about Igaman. I'm looking at every Rangers player in that team, and I'm thinking to myself, with the new investment coming in, the new board coming in, the way things are changing, I'm not sitting here. It's not like I'm sitting here going, if it was a Brian Laudrup, oh no, he can't leave. If it was a Paul Gascoigne, no, he can't leave. If it's an Ali McCoist, he can't leave. For me, there's not a single player in that Rangers team who's done enough over the last 3 years for any of us to sit here and go, I'd be gutted if we get rid of him.
Nope, not a single player. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'd love nothing more than Nico Raskin to sign an extension of his contract, but Stuart's bang on the money, as always. He's got 2 years left.
Signing with Stuart?
Well, but it's not the first time I've said it on here. No, I don't mean about Stuart, but what I'm about to say. That Raskin's got 2 years left, right? He'll never be worth more money to us than he is now. He won't have a bigger value to Rangers than he has at this very moment in time. Particularly if he goes away with Belgium and rips it up, because he's in the Belgian squad again for these internationals coming up. So if he won't sign an extension, he has to go. But he only has to go if the money's right. Diamande, again, it would take a silly bid to shift him. He's got 3 years left in his contract, so there's no rush to get rid of him. We could be in this time next year. We could be in the same situation with Diamande as we are with Raskin this year. But that's the way this model's supposed to work. You know, you're supposed to have a blue chip player that you sell every year for a load of cash. You know what I mean? And I'd love to keep asking about, but he'd have to sign a new contract. Now, I think there's a chance you could get him to sign it if you've got the right guys talking to him, because the next 12 months is vital for his international career, because he's just broke into the Belgian team. He's playing for us every week if he's fit, and that will probably continue. And he's got a World Cup. He's got a World Cup at the next summer. So if he moves away, say he sees the bright lights of Man City or Bayern Munich or wherever he ends up, he might not play. So he won't be in the limelight as much. Belgium might say, well, he's not getting regular football, so we'll just put him on the reserve list. He's not going to the World Cup. He stays with Rangers, rips it up with us, does the business for us in Europe, carries on the trajectory he's on. He's nailed on for the World Cup squad, so he'll probably look at it that way, because he's still young enough that next summer, having signed an extension where there's still having 2 years left, he can then go for big money after a good World Cup. But it's all conjecture. I do expect he'll probably go. But if I'm him, that's the way I'm looking at it.
I think Porto's the latest to be linked to him, and you could see him going to a team like Porto. I think that would be an interesting move.
I don't know the current state of Portuguese football and where Porto are, because it's always Porto, Benfica, and
Sporting.
It's always between the three normally, isn't it? But I don't know where. But Wolf's 100% right. He's got to make the right move for his international career, and he's going to get game time at Rangers more often than not. He's going to be starting, depending on who we bring in.
How often, Martin, have we said though, as fans, we need to buckle up and accept that there will be times where we are going to be really frustrated because we are going to see a player really starting to show their potential, but the club needs to make the right decision at that point to say it's time to move you on. So it's not going to be easy for us, but it is the right thing for us as a football club to do. And you, again, the proof will be in the pudding here, but I do wonder whether or not having those Rangers men at the top, maybe they got a wee bit blindsided at times with regards to making those really harsh decisions, whereas these guys, maybe they won't have that problem.
Can I just say, we've got nearly 1,200 people watching, so please do like, share and subscribe, whatever you are watching on. It really, really does help the show out. And on that point as well, I want to ask you about Jamie Vardy, right? Just to annoy some people. But it all depends, I suppose, Stuart, on what the board want to do with the football club. How far do they want to take Rangers? Are we always going to be a selling club, or are we only going to be a selling club to a point? And then do they want to push for Europa League wins, getting deeper in the Champions League? It all depends on what they want to do. Also depends on how much money we can make, I suppose, as a football club through shirt sales, season tickets. Will the league get any better? Will the league be restructured? Will the more money come into the league, etc., etc.? We're really hampered by how poor the SFA are as well at negotiating contracts and TV rights and sponsorship deals. That's always going to hamper us and Celtic. Let's be honest, it's going to hamper both clubs. Just finally, right? Just as a wee bit of fun, Leicester Live were reporting, and I made this point again. I repeat myself on the afternoon rabble that English teams down south have got a closer relationship to the media than what we do up here. Things get out a lot more down there. More stuff's spoke about down there, and you tend to trust more often than not what you hear down there. Right. So Leicester Live, or whatever the publication was called, said that Rangers are trying to get into some sort of discussions. Are very interested in signing Jamie Vardy. Wages aside, Wilf, and I probably shouldn't say that because it's the biggest question, but wages aside, is it possible?
It's possible. Of course it's possible. Anything's possible in football. Wages, I don't think we come into it, because if Jamie Vardy wants to basically do what Jermaine Defoe did and come to Rangers and, do what Jermaine Defoe did, come in, make a name for himself, well, not make a name for himself, he's got a name, but score goals, win himself another league title. Okay, JD came here to win himself a league title because he's never done that. Then he's made his money, so he probably would play for still serious money, but nothing like what he was on at Leicester. I actually meant to check this after he spoke about it at lunchtime, and I completely forgot. Time got the better of me. I don't think Jamie Vardy came into football until a bit later than a lot of people. I think he was early 20s before he came in. Now, I fully believe that footballers, it's not age, it's miles in the legs. So if I'm right and Jamie Vardy didn't come into professional football till his early to mid-20s, then 38-year-old really, he'll probably carry on into his early 40s. Because look at Davy Weir. Davy Weir did a 4-year scholarship in America, came back here, signed for his first club, I think, when he was 23, and carried on until he was 42. So for me, it's miles in the legs. You've got Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney came on the scene at 16, retired at 31, 32 because his body was knackered. So I think it's miles. Jamie Vardy's still got, for me, a couple of seasons left at a very decent level. I'm not saying we should sign him, but I think if he's serious about wanting to come up here, I don't think he'd be asking for 6-figure salaries, because he knows he just simply wouldn't get it up here.
Yeah. Stuart, I'll let you finish up on that.
Just
say yes, Jamie Vardy's coming, going to score barrel loads of goals in the Scottish League. He's got at least another 2 year left in him. He's still got the pace. He's still got the finishing. He's going to be excellent. It's happening. Good night, everybody.
I'm not going to say that. I would. I think this is an interesting one. I think Will's right. Look, if Jamie Vardy wants, it'll be the lure of playing for Rangers that will attract, not wages. In fact, he's made his money. He's more than settled. So if we were to go back to what we did under Gerrard, where we kind of almost had 4 strikers and Defoe was one of them, you could see Vardy kind of being that role. I'm pretty sure he still feels that he could be the main man there. Actually, speaking to somebody in work today, they talked about what about the low blocks that we came up against. He likes to play in the shoulder and go in behind. I can understand that argument. I think Vardy's got a bit more to him than just being a pace merchant. I think he's got a bit of savvy in terms of in and around the box, his movement. I think you can look across the city and see that they've got a player with pace who has caused teams real problems. He's caused us problems with that pace, and they will come up against a low block at times. So I think it would be an interesting one. If he's available and, like, say, wages are no issue, I think it could be an interesting one and a wee bit of a statement signing as well. And I think just helps build new owners, new sporting director, new coach. There's Jamie Vardy. Yeah, he's all right at the twilight of his career. But again, I think it just builds that excitement for me. So if it was doable, I wouldn't be against it. I think he would be a useful person to have around the training centre, etc. as well.
That's a very good point, Martin, as well.
Yes, it is.
Very, very good point.
Absolutely is.
Because Rangers are too nice. You made that point earlier today as well. Rangers are too nice. We've been too nice for too long. And nice teams don't win major trophies. We've been far too nice for too long.
Yeah, 100%. Can I just say, Shona McLean, you should be ashamed of yourself. will be a fox in the box. Will be our fox in the box. That's shocking. That is terrible. Worst
Shona
joke
likes,
I've heard tonight.
Shona likes that fox emoji. That's why she's using that, because she's used it about 3 times in the chat that I've noticed.
Yeah, will be our fox. You should be ashamed of yourself. Absolutely ashamed of yourself. Terrible. All right, folks. Well, I knew with Stuart and Wilf we could probably go for about another hour, but we best not, because Stuart, it's actually that close to his bedtime.
It really is,
So,
yep. Really.
And see,
That's because he was out partying with BBC Scotland yesterday. That's the only reason he's
yes, he
tired.
was. He was partying with BBC Scotland.
I certainly wasn't partying with them, but I was kind of watching some of their antics. By the way, yes, that's some stories there. I tell you.
Just tell us now. Sorry, nobody's
No,
listening.
I probably not, because I might need my lawyer. So probably not worth it.
All right, folks. Well, listen, go and enjoy the rest of your Monday night. We are back for members tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. for your morning rabble, and then we're back at 12:30 for the afternoon rabble, and then we're back at 7:30. No, we're back at 7 tomorrow night for your live Tuesday night members show. Hundreds of content, loads and loads to keep you going throughout the post-season, loads to keep you going throughout this, just loads to keep you going for 365 days of the year, right? So, if you want to help out, just please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us across all socials. If you want to help out that a wee bit more, then you can become a member now and get access to loads and loads of extra content. Read the tiers carefully if you're going to do it, so you know exactly which shows are what and which shows you can see. My thanks to Wilf and Stuart for joining me. As always, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for all the super chats, all the comments. It really does mean so much. So go and enjoy the rest of your Monday night, folks. And yeah, we'll speak very, very soon.